What is going on, guys? Robert, how are you doing?
Doing all right. How are you, Devin? Thank you, bud.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. Welcome to the live stream. It's always good to have you. For people that know, this is Robert from Marine Depot, who's been on a few times. Super knowledgeable, awesome guy. Love having you on.
Thank you, Devin. Appreciate it. The feeling is mutual.
Excellent, excellent. So today we kind of want to talk about different kind of telltale signs that something's happening with your reef tank, or sometimes if something's off. Once you've been in the hobby long enough, generally you'll see something that will kind of trigger you, and it comes with experience. So
Sure.
yeah, I mean, really, it's one of those things that just happens. You'll learn it the longer you're in it.
Yeah, exactly. The more you stare at coral and fish, the better capable you are of understanding what a healthy one looks like and what not so healthy one looks like.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, if you really have no reference point, it's hard.
Yeah, exactly. So starting out, I mean, there's something I'd say generally you're in the hobby for a few years before you'll start to notice these things.
Sure.
So it definitely comes with time. K Reef Aquarium, Sharbuckles, Hot Ashes, Gabe's Reef, Gow Gow, Mad Dog, Savecki's Reef. What is going on, guys? Welcome to the stream. Two of the best on the same screen. Woohoo. Thank
All
you,
right.
Raquel. All right, all right.
Fist bump, whoever that is.
Virtual fist bump. I like
There
it.
you go.
All right. So if you walk up to a tank, what's the first thing that would say something's off to you? Would it be the fish, the corals, something else, just like algae in
Um,
the tank?
yeah, algae doesn't scare me as much as yeah, the corals and the way that they look. I'll look at polyps right away.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously color.
Yeah.
You can tell kind of healthy flesh versus not so healthy flesh.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I'll just say this. I know it's gonna probably freak people out, but like a zeovit tank with pastel corals, I immediately it scares me. It's like, hey, they're dying, and and it's
I
like really
agree.
they are on the verge of death. I
It
mean, they're
is.
like right there. I mean, you go a little bit farther, in the other direction, and limit the carbon. They're just, I mean, they'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's what I look at. I'll look at the coral, even a frag, where it was cut, if it's healed, if it's growing again, if the edges are growing. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
have a colony in the tank now that I can't figure out what's wrong with it, but it's huge. It's probably 8 inches across. It's a big like tabling acro, and I haven't been able to get growth tips on it for 6 months. Everything's fine. The
Mm-hmm.
polyps are coming out. The flesh is still intact. It's not like it's dying from the inside out, but the growth tips are gone.
Yep.
And for people that don't understand, a growth tip is like is where the coral is growing, and on the end, and it'll be white. It'll be a little bit different color than the rest of the coral.
Mm-hmm.
For Montiporos, like a purple rim Monty, you'll want
Yep.
to look for a nice, bright, healthy purple rim that it's growing. And so those are the kind of things that I'll look at,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of tell the health of a coral.
Yep. No, the growth tip's actually a big one. One thing to look out too, if your tip's like white, that usually means that's what we call like elk burn, which usually could be from swings in elk, or if it's really high and too much light type of thing, that could cause elk burn. But when it's healthy growth, it's usually like a paler version of the coral, that more of a white tone you'll see coming up on
Yeah,
the tips.
that's funny you brought that up. When we were discussing this, I never thought about that. But yeah, the flesh is huge. So like, an elk burn, there's actually no flesh there. You're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the skeleton. A growth tip, there's flesh over it. I mean, when
Mm-hmm.
you have it side by side, it's really, really obvious. That would have been maybe we can share some pictures when we're done,
Okay.
because I definitely have examples of both.
Well,
um, and I mean, it's real obvious. You'll see the flesh is gone when you've got like a coral that's burned from elk. And then a growth tip, it's pretty obvious, but I guess you have to kind of see it side by side or experience both to make it that way. Because I do get that question a lot. They're
mm-hmm.
like, "Is this elk burn or is it growing?" And 9 times out of 10, it's growing.
Yeah.
But you know,
Mm-hmm. Well,
there's definitely a lot of people that ask me.
no, that makes sense. It is a common one because I mean, until you've experienced, you're not really going to know the difference.
Sure, definitely.
Pedro is asking any tips on tissue loss at the base of frog spawn hammer. So most LPS, the polyp's
Oh,
kind of in the center and it grows outwards down the skeleton. And usually, if something's not right, like it will start to recede back up towards the head.
yeah, yeah. So like, if you start to expose skeleton,
Mm-hmm.
that's obviously the point where I get really worried. I just went through this actually. So yeah, there was an elk swing in the tank, which really upset this big hammer
Mm-hmm.
that I had, and so after I corrected the parameters, it stayed retracted. It never came out. It just slowly receded in,
Oh no.
and it was right at that edge where the flesh met the skeleton is where I noticed the signs of infection, and
Mm-hmm.
that's actually where it I guess proceeded. That's where I
Yep.
first started noticing it. Any tips for that? I'd say ensure that
Mm-hmm.
your water chemistry is correct. If
Mm-hmm.
you're noticing any kind of slime or anything like that, dip it. Dipping
Mm-hmm.
it will definitely slow down the infection, ideally. But for me, I fragged it.
Yep.
So, I watched it die for 2 weeks, and I
Mm-hmm.
just got so scared that I was going to lose it that I just cut it up. And I've got 3 pieces, and they're
Yep.
good. That was what,
Did
gosh, that
you
was like 6 months ago, right? I
did you
can't remember.
lose
It
the
was a
one
while
head
ago.
or did it survive?
It was actually a wall hammer, so it was
Mm.
one big mouth. I mean, it was one big
Yep.
head. So
That's
I
tricky.
was lucky. Yeah, I was actually
Mm.
really, really lucky in a sense that after I cut it, I sealed all the the fresh cut parts and just with super glue,
Mm-hmm.
and they're great. I
Yep.
mean, all of them are expanding and actually growing now, and the flesh is all down the skeleton. But that entire colony had receded back to where there was actually skeleton showing everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're running into it, I'd say definitely try to correct the problem with chemistry. If you think that's what caused it, dip it, and then if it continues to recede, move
Mm-hmm.
it or frag it.
Yep.
I mean, obviously when you frag it, you're going to move it, so the new location can kind of
Move it. And
moving
sometimes
corals around is sort of the first thing you do.
sometimes too it's worth fragging, say, a head off and then to put them into two separate areas so you almost have a backup colony if there is an issue.
Exactly, yeah. And then you could
Mm.
also kind of test to see, well, is it just the location?
Yeah. Exactly.
Those sometimes corals will survive in a spot but not really thrive. Next thing you know, you frag it and you put it in another part of the tank, and the thing's all of a sudden double, triple the growth rate. I've had it a couple times, especially early on when I, wasn't, I didn't understand the flow and lighting requirements for everything. And then beyond that, not all SBS really needs super high, high light and high flow. So within the different genres or groups,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely differences between the species. And so early on, I learned by trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
And by placing, once something would grow and I could frag it, I'd put it in a little, another spot just to see.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would be fruitful, and other times you'd learn real quick that no, we need
Nope.
to keep it up top in the flow.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
sometimes just moving that, 6 inches different can be amazing color changes. Like it's crazy
Oh
the
yeah.
differences.
Yeah. No, definitely. I noticed it with zoanthids. It was one of the first corals I collected early on, and I was always trying to build zoa gardens.
Nice.
And so you end up with different, the same type of polyp in different areas of the tank. And yeah, certainly color morphs, man. You get like speckles on the tentacles off the side of the skirts.
Mm-hmm.
You get different morphs, inside the skirt where it's like the same orange, but you'd get like different variants in there of the way that the orange would be displayed. Some would be like super opaque, some would have little splotches, and it was all original from the same genetic,
Mm-hmm.
And depending on where we put it in the tank, the lighting would certainly change it up.
Yep. Even with mine, just between my main tank and the nano tank, you get some crazy different color changes just moving stuff from tank to tank. And
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You pull them out of the big tank and put them in the little one, yeah.
like some corals look better in my big tank, some look better in the nano. So it's
Yeah.
funny. Just I mean, it could be the parameters, could be the different light spectrums, or just a mix of it all. But I don't know. It's fun to play.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking about this the other day. I was looking at like one of these like mini pico tanks, where you kind of got to put it together with tweezers.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen them with freshwater. I've seen them done with shrimp bowls, and then all kinds of other stuff they do with that. But I was thinking like, okay, so say you had a single acan head, and you put it in there, and then you put like a copepod next to it, and then you took a macro shot of it. And how cool would that be, like with the cropped photo, and then you take it back, and then it's like you put your face next to it, just to kind of see the perspective there.
Yep. Are you talking those little tiny?
Yeah,
yeah,
like
I've seen those.
little tiny box tank. But I thought it would be neat to kind of set one up and take some photos with a really tiny shrimp or crab or something, and then pull it away with the larger perspective to kind of see what it looks like.
Yeah, you'd be like couple zoas and like a single sexy shrimp, and then you're like max.
Yeah. I mean, you could get it to look like this huge, massive. It's like a Hong Kong shrimp, or is it like this tiny little or King Kong shrimp? Sorry, and this tiny little shrimp. It would be neat to see what it looks like.
Yep, that would be pretty fun. Someone asked this question a couple times. What is the ideal parameters for coral? I personally, I don't know if there's a quote unquote ideal. The biggest thing is keeping those pick numbers and stick to it and keep it stable. But I keep my tank 8.5 for elk, calcium 420, 450 ish, magnesium 1250 to 1350, is kind of like my target zones, and then just keep it as stable as you can. But
Yeah,
your elk could be 7, it could be 11, right? But just pick a number and stick to it. Corals will adapt; they just don't like changes.
right, exactly. So the
Hmm.
range is, I think, 7 to 12 on your elk, but we all know that if you swing between 7 and 8 or 7 and
Yep.
9, it's not going to work out. So it's the stability.
Hmm.
It's the most important thing, and sort of keep it equal within the given ranges.
Yeah.
So calcium can be 350 to 480. Out can be, between 7 and 12 DKH. Your mag can be between 12 and 1400.
Hmm.
As long as it's within that range, they're going to be able to use it, and stability is where the key is.
Yeah. Exactly. And then personally, I find just being in the middle, you got a little more buffer room. If something does swing a little bit, and you're not as.
Yeah, yeah. That's personally that's what I practice. I'll
Mhm.
try to keep the alk at 9. I keep the calcium right at 400 to 430, just to kind of depends, but usually right around 400. And then mag I'll keep between 12 and 13.
Yeah.
Generally speaking,
Hmm.
sometimes it'll be a little bit higher, but generally speaking, I don't test mag all the time. It's usually like a monthly test,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, it comes out right about 1300.
Hmm. Someone's just asking, can you have a tank without dosing? Basic water changes for tank with soft curls and SPS? Absolutely can. Usually on those tanks, as long as, yeah, LPS generally aren't as demanding. They don't suck as much calcium out of the water. So if you're using salt with elevated levels and you do a decent sized weekly water change, make sure it replenishes it, then it's totally doable.
Yeah, the way I look at that is what's in the tank, and obviously the
Hmm.
size of it. But like, you know, let's just say a really large tank with a low stocking level
Hmm.
is going to be fine with water changes. And you can probably go longer in between because you've
Yep.
got, you got a ton of water and very minimal demand on what's coming out of the water.
Mhm.
But you get a nano tank with a bunch of stuff in it. That's where you run into problems real quick because even a water change can't keep up with nutrient removal as well as replenishment
Hmm.
of elements. So you really want to focus on the stocking levels there and what you're putting in the tank. I think some of the best reefs I've ever seen are like 3 fish and 100 coral.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's definitely something to think about
Hmm.
when you're building it.
Yep. The one way to actually check or know though is by testing your tank. Like have those test
Sure.
kits, and if over the whole week, maybe you're 8 and you only drop half a DKH over a week, then it's not an issue, right? But if you're dropping half a DKH a day, then you definitely need to dose. So the only way to 100% know, I'd say, would be able to test it and see how much your
Sure.
levels change from day to day.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. So another good one too is certain corals can kind of tell you if there's issues. Like there's certain indicator corals. A big one for me, I know Australian Duncans is one of my favorite indicator corals because when they're happy, you got those big polyps, and if they're not, they'll recede and they'll close up, and they won't like they're usually a good indicator. If they don't look happy, there's something up with the water. So that's one.
I use a green Monty
Yeah.
because for whatever reason, the polyps, I can tell from across the room. It feels like I have this big Monty cap. Had it for years. There's been multiple frags of it, but I've always used it like this. Man, I can walk and look at that coral, and if the polyps aren't out on it, everything else will look fine. But that
Hmm.
one, for whatever reason, it just seems to be super sensitive. And every single time that I've seen it not happy and not as brilliant, I'll test and something's off.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the advice there, the point is just find an indicator coral, understand what it looks like when it's happy, and you'll be able to tell right away if there's something wrong with it,
Yep. No.
and act on those. When you see
Mhm.
it, don't just be like, well,
I'll
wait
do
till
it later.
yeah, exactly. Like certainly test that water because things go
I'll,
downhill fast, man, and the
I'll,
uphill climb is real slow.
I'll test tomorrow. I'll test tomorrow. Oh, so on that, I'll probably won't dig too much into this because I'll probably do a video on it for next week. But I did an ICP test on my new tank finally, and some of the parameters seemed a little wonky in there. So I immediately tested everything this morning just to re-verify it. So same thing. If you see something that might be off, test it all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to add, I mean, what did you
Yeah.
find with your home test versus the ICP? Did you see anything funky?
The one
Are we
there's a few things that I expected because I purposely haven't dosed anything for 2 months because I want to find out what my calcium reactor is and isn't providing.
sure?
But my calcium, elk, and mag all seemed much lower on the ICP test than what I personally test, and that kind of threw me off a bit. Now I'm not 100% sure if that's because I'm in Canada, I'm sending to Germany. It takes a couple weeks to get there in the cold. I don't know if that affected it or if that's at all relevant. But I don't. That was the one thing that threw me off. But aside from that, the few things I kind of expected. And Rogue's Aquarium, thank you very much for the $4.99 super chat. Much appreciated. So What's your experience with the ICP test? Have they been what you've expected, or has there been any kind of wild cards for you?
Okay, I haven't really used it too much other than to just sort of spot check my work and like, back up my inclination. So, I'm not like on any kind of regular schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of rely on like a weekly test to maintain everything, and I'm so used to operating that way that it's kind of hard for me to break it.
Yep.
So I'm really not on any kind of like regular ICP schedule. Some of the fun stuff though that I've learned from it, and I guess been able to just sort of explore beyond what I'm typically used to controlling in the tank is some of the trace elements. It's neat to finally be able to see and control some of those levels, and then see the reaction in the tank from it.
Mm-hmm.
Things before where we're just kind of guessing.
Yep.
Now you can kind of really nail down to like, okay, that was directly related to me increasing the strontium level because that's the only thing I changed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to be able to make those inferences from it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really, the best benefit that I've gotten from them so far.
Nice. No, that's good.
I can say too that for me, it just gives me the peace of mind to know, because I really don't trust home test kits no matter what brand it is. And I really just have a hard time trusting them. And so I always find myself using multiple brands, especially in situations when things are off. When everything's coming up fine, I trust it. But as soon as something's off, I find myself like I'll grab whatever, 3 ALK tests that I can in different brands. Sometimes I'll buy a brand new one just to make sure that the old one that still has half a reagent bottle is still testing the same.
This morning, I actually looked at one of my Hannah elk tests, and it was expired like a year ago. I'm like, garbage. Opened up a new one. I'm like, all right, I'm retesting with a good test again.
Yeah, exactly. And so the ICP is probably saving me a little bit of money in the sense that at least I know that my tests are accurate, or I know if I should probably change.
Yep. Okay.
Or get a new one.
No, it's a good call. That's a good one. It's a kind of a good double check. Dr. Wilson Magic was asking, ACANs and polyp bailout, is there a specific reason/cure? I've never actually had that happen with an ACAN before.
Yeah.
I'm going to blindly guess it could be stress from elk swings or something else stressing out the coral, but I've never actually had that happen, so I'm not 100% on that one.
Yeah, no, that's a tough one. And when you say polyp bailout, I mean, it's like, what exactly does that mean? How quick did it happen? And it's really just the coral died fast.
Yeah, before the polyp could catch up.
Well, yeah, essentially.
Have you ever seen like one polyp bail out and then like grow back from the polyp?
Yeah, there's certain corals that do that. It was funny. There's a sun coral I saw this morning. I can't remember. Somebody put it on the internet, but yeah, they'll kind of bud right off the skeleton. Plate corals do it. I think
I know Porcellopora does it. That's one for sure.
Yeah, Porcellopora will drop the buds and they'll get everywhere.
Yeah, and they'll take over your tank. I actually haven't had one so long, and then I bought a neon one like a week ago because it was so vibrant and green.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, it's better not take over. But it's like the brightest green I've seen, so it's like...
Yeah, that's neat. Like a metallic one, like a metallic green.
Yeah, I'll snap a pic later, but it's crazy how bright this coral is.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I like to see it. I have one now, and it's been really good. It hasn't spread, but
perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just a matter of time. It's also not really growing like I'm used to, Porcellopora growing, so we'll see. It'll probably take off at one point in time here, and then, of course, it'll start spreading.
Yeah, very true.
But the Discosoma I've had from, like, completely dead pieces, just sitting on the tank, or sitting in the bottom of the tank, and then all of a sudden, it just starts budding them out, which is kind of a neat thing to watch,
It's nice when it comes back. Oh, same thing too, like a plate coral. If I've seen some where it's died and all of a sudden it has little babies underneath, it's kind of like its last...
I've seen them come out the side of branching frog spawns, which is really cool. That's a really neat thing to watch. You'll see them kind of, when it...
Little head on the branch?
Tracks. Yeah, you'll see just a little tree just coming out the side of it, and then it breaks, and, then that one will settle. I have this is kind of a neat one, and I'll share some pictures of it, but I have a huge fobia that, like, it buds and it'll drop. So the flesh just starts to droop in one area, and it slowly stretches because there's a little piece of skeleton inside of it. And I mean, it takes 6 months, literally 6 months, but it'll just slowly droop and drop and drop and drop. And then finally it'll break off, and then it's a new coral. It's really, really neat to watch it happen, but this is the third one, or I'm on the third process of it that I'm going to be able to get another frag out of it. And the first two were great. I mean, I didn't have to cut it. As soon as it dropped, I glued it onto a frag piece and it lived.
What type of coral was this?
It's a fobia.
Okay. I saw a photo the other day and it kind of amazed me. It was a candy cane coral. and it
Okay,
literally looked
yeah.
like it was melting and falling off.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
apparently they can like lower their pH inside of it and like dissolve part of the skeleton. And I've never seen that happen before. It's completely amazing. I'm like, why is that coral melting? What's going on?
Yeah.
It looked
Yeah, no,
it's weird.
I I mean, I've watched it happen in front of me. It
Yep.
started maybe 3 years ago, and like I said, I've been able to make 2 frags off of it, but the process takes so long, and I don't, because it's so fascinating to me, I don't disturb it or anything. I could probably cut it, but I just wanna, like,
See what happens.
yeah, naturally let it
Hmm.
happen. And I can't really tell why either. It just seems to do it. It
Hmm.
happens on sort of the same part of the coral on the same edge. But I've moved the coral around different tanks, different areas, and it just kind of always seems to happen on the
Huh.
same area of the coral, regardless of the flow or the light that's gone
Yep.
on it.
Ah, that's crazy. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing that could have with LPS. Someone was asking about dipping it if there's an issue. If there is a bacteria infection on it, sometimes you can dip with something. I have used Revive before.
Yeah.
I'm sure any coral dip will kind of do it, but some of them will help if there is a bit bacteria thing that's affecting it. So may or may not work, but never hurts to try.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing with,
Hmm.
when you're at that point and it's going fast,
Hmm.
you kind of want to try everything you can, and antibacterial dip is something that will definitely help
Yeah.
if it's a bacterial infection that's causing the problem.
Mhm. So another one. So that's more with LPS. So if there's say a hammer, like brown jelly is one I've seen affect stuff. Like, but if you have like a hammer or a torch or something that's affecting one head, usually I'd frag off the bad head and then usually the colony so it doesn't infect it.
Yeah, if you've got a branching situation where you can cut it off,
Hmm.
yeah, I would just bite the bullet and do that
Yep.
first. My situation was a wall hammer, so it was kind of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's tricky because
But
it's one giant polyp essentially.
yeah, believe me, I wanted to cut it as
Hmm.
soon as I saw it, but I knew that I couldn't. And being a like a wall hammer like that, they're hard to frag in general.
Hmm.
So I was really averse to doing that, but it worked. I was lucky.
That's good. Happy you saved it.
Yep.
So that's LPS. SPS, same thing. There is sometimes something could happen with the coral for STNing, uh, which STN or RTN, which is slow tissue necrosis or rapid tissue necrosis. So rapid's basically like overnight a coral turns white, and usually there's not much you can do. If something's STNing, usually it could be from something stressing it, or it could be a bacterial thing. There's a couple times where I've tried super gluing over the infected area, and that actually stopped it from spreading. Other times, if it's kind of starting at the base and working its way up, I've just fragged off tips and then they've made it, and I've just kind of re-glued them back once afterwards. And it
Yep.
kind of grew back on. So I've done that a couple times in the past, and something's done it.
Something to understand too, and this is a neat thing that was taught to me kind of recently, but when a coral's damaged, it sends a lot of energy. It pulls away from growing and it sends its energy to repair that damaged area.
Mhm.
And if it's STNing, all of that coral's energy is going to trying to repair the damaged spot.
Mhm.
So when you talked about fragging and regrowing, you want to give yourself a good, half an inch above the death line, so to
Mhm.
speak. Frag it there, put it on a new plug, and ideally the coral will switch from trying to, as soon as it heals and starts growing, it'll start sending its energy back into growing. But a lot of
Mhm.
times when you have that STN, on top of whatever issues causing the STN, the coral is not focusing on growing. It's
Mhm.
actually putting all its energy into trying to battle this ailment. So fragging off and doing that is oftentimes a better way to ensure that you keep the coral, and you can get that coral jump started again, because it can be a while before it even repairs itself, and it'll probably end up pretty ugly,
Mhm.
uh, with the base dying out.
Yeah.
And the reason it happens can be hard. I think Deb, we talked about it earlier. Could be lighting,
Mhm.
specifically with SPS.
Yeah.
But lack of flow is often one that a lot of guys, when the colony gets pretty big, you
Mhm.
got to blast water through that thing, or else the inside will just suffocate out.
On
Same
bird's nests, I
same with
actually see
light.
that a lot. Like a big-headed bird's nest has very tightly interwoven branches. And
Hmm.
usually, in the middle of the colony, is not getting enough flow, then it will start to die out from the middle, and then the tips will still be fine.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I've
Hmm.
got a beautiful one. It's a pink. I think pink panape is what they call it. It's like a pink polyp with a green base on it. And yeah, that one kind of does it. It grows out all real pretty. And this one's actually got like the branches are farther apart than like a hystrix. But for whatever reason, this one, the base of it, it'll grow like maybe 4 or 5 inches and then just start to die out at the bottom.
Hmm.
And I've changed the places, but the best thing I can do is just frag it off and start a new colony. Then it
Hmm.
gets back to looking pretty again.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's asking, what about anemone? Does it need a lot of flow?
Go ahead, Devin.
They they find their happy place.
Yeah.
If it's not happy, it will move to where it's happy.
Yeah, that's the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
you're creating an environment in your tank. There's obviously flow zones that are going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and the the advantage an enemy has is it can move, and it will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's actually concerning with a new NEM if it doesn't, and it just stays in one place and doesn't inflate and just melts away. I mean, that means the enemy's not healthy and it's probably not going
Mm-hmm.
to make it. So, when enemies are strong enough to move around and they're opening and trying to find their spot, that's a good thing because it means it's healthy and it's accepting your accepting your tank, so to speak.
Yep. I have one I can't get rid of for the life of me. I can't get over
Yeah.
the rock. That's a whole nother story.
Have you tried the ice trick?
It's whole. Okay, when it's open, it is as
Uh
big
huh.
as my hand. It sucks into a hole smaller than my pinky finger. I can't get to the foot. I just can't.
I wonder if that would melt the flesh, but the Mahana wand.
Yeah,
I mean, it would definitely
it'd probably
irritate it, but
take it out.
well, yeah, you'd put
Yeah.
a hole in it is what you do. You wouldn't be able to control it.
It was on the upper side of my rock, and I was trying to make it more of like an SPS zone. So I
Mhm.
blasted it with flow, and every day I kept upping the flow by 10%. And eventually
Uh-huh.
it crawled through the internal structure of the rock and poked out the other side. Now it's on the
Right.
edge. I'm just like,
I
ah.
Yeah. Maybe try like if you take like a metal rod and put it in
Yeah,
the freezer, and
yeah,
then maybe see if that'll irritate it because you can kind of get it down the hole.
yeah, that's true.
But a lot of guys that love NEMs and like the home breeders of them, they always, I ask them like, how do you get it off the rock? And generally they tell me they'll use ice.
Yeah,
And it seems to pop right off, or they just get in with a spoon, like a
yeah.
plastic spoon, and literally just kind of like work it off.
Yeah, the biggest problem is it literally goes from this into a hole that big, so you just can't get to it.
No,
It
I know.
just,
Yeah, you
yeah,
can't get to the foot. Yeah.
that's, and it's like a massive rock. I don't want to break it because it's like half my arch. So, oh, well.
Yeah.
One day
What kind of NEM is it?
rose bubble tip.
Yeah, of course.
Hmm. Exactly. All right, so that was NEMS. Which one asked? So we got STNing. Same thing. If your coral is STNing, usually cut it, quarter an inch or more above the infected area, and usually you can save it. Not always, but a good chunk of the time you can save the piece that you chop off. So another thing, so if an acro or something's having poor polyp extension, normally you got nice fuzzies, it's not extending anymore. It's usually another good sign it's stressed out or it's not happy. What else is? You totally just muted yourself.
Am I back?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So with the polyp extension, that's one of the biggest things that you'll hear talked about on, especially in the SPS guys.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a number of things that can cause it. It could be too much flow. It could be not enough flow.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that there's not enough particles in the water to make it extend. It could be a chemistry issue. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a tough one to really delineate. But the point being is as long as you notice it
Mm-hmm.
and you understand that it means there's something wrong, you've kind of like half the battle's over.
Yep.
It's just a matter at that point to act on it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Another one actually for more the algae side. Another good telltale sign for nutrient levels. If you're looking, you got sand bed, you got like brown stuff all over your salmon bed, or your glass is excessively cloudy. That's another good sign that you probably have a nutrient issue. You're not feeding too much. You're not exporting enough. One or the other.
Right. Yeah, that one's kind of a given,
Mm-hmm.
but still something that we don't necessarily think about all the time. I mean, if you're constantly like every day you've got a green fog on the glass, or you're getting a
Mm-hmm.
dusting on the sand bed of some brown diatom or slime growth or something, just know that that's an indication that your tank is probably consistently running with too high of a nutrient level. So you might want to think about doing something to control it better.
Mm-hmm.
Like just export the nutrients more efficiently.
So someone else is asking about the ACAN polyp bailout. I can't dig too much in that. I've never had it happen. I've never seen it happen.
Yeah,
I don't know if
like
you have
this
anything
word
on it.
polyp bailout, but
Yeah, I've never had an ACAN lose. I've had one ACAN recede before, and then I literally just kind of nursed it back, and now it's growing again. But I've never had one actually lose a head like I've seen with other ones.
yeah. I mean, I would say, an ACAN itself is one big polyp, and so if you got a polyp bailout in that sense, like the entire coral is gone. So, I mean, it can't function anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that, an ACAN I've never seen grow back from a dead skeleton. So if that's the question, I don't think you're going to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only very, very particular coral species that do that.
I have had an acan that receded to almost nothing. There's like a pinhead size of a head in there. I left it, and it
Mhm.
actually did grow back eventually.
It grew back over
Yeah,
itself,
yeah.
but it grew new skeleton, right? It grew new
No,
skeleton
it
over
it
that.
grew out of the same hole. It
Oh,
probably
wow.
is. I don't know. I'll go look later. I know
Yeah, I
there's
was
two
gonna say
heads on it, but it
it
was
had to
almost a
have
goner.
laid a new layer of skeleton over that.
It could be
Uh,
inside the head, a tiny one.
Man, there you go.
I'll
Um,
investigate. I'm curious now.
and I guess I have seen it too, where it receded, but
Hmm.
uh, it didn't bail out. I mean,
Yeah.
the entire coral didn't come out of the skeleton. All was left with the skeleton. It was actually there was still flesh and mouth. It just sort of receded from the edges, and that was a long, slow process. It wasn't like a bailout where it just happens and there's
Hmm.
nothing you can do. You can't like put the flesh back into the coral or like
Yeah.
glue it back on.
Be interesting to try, but probably won't get you very far.
Yeah, no, I mean, now
Glue
you're
it on,
getting
stay there.
the multicolored Montes and like the grafted coral territory.
Yep. That could be kind of fun to try. It's another. Oh, one that happens I see a few times in shrimp molt. People are like, my shrimp died. It's like, nope, just a skeleton.
Oh yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah, you see that sometimes, especially and it's mostly from new hobbyists, but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean the molt is literally an identical. It's
It
it's
looks
their
just like a shrimp.
exoskeleton. It's what it was prior, prior than them sloughing off. So it really does look like a living, or it can look like a living
Yep.
shrimp or crab. So don't be surprised and always check. Don't just think that it died. You can grab the molt. Hermit crabs will eat it, but not always. But most of the time they'll eat it. So it's rare you find a hermit crab one. But shrimp, you definitely can get a hold of a shrimp molt,
Yep.
and it's pretty amazing how real they look. But you always want to check because it'll be hollow. And that's how you'll know it's just the molt.
One interesting one I had one time was a molt from an emerald crab.
That's a neat one.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever seen it, and it was floating in my tank. So it somehow got air, and it was floating at the surface. It looked like a little.
Yeah, and it's neat because
Protoss or
it's fully
something.
intact. Like
Yeah.
they literally just slide out. You think all those little legs, and how do they get out of that thing? And they just literally just slide right out. It's neat.
Nice. Josh just dropped $403 in Marine Depot on a trigger sump. Nice.
Attaboy.
Attaboy.
Thank you, man. Fist bump.
Hopefully use that coupon code.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Trigger stumps are nice, man. I think
are.
you'll like it. That's I've third trigger system sump that I've run now.
Yeah?
I have the
Nice.
MD Elite, like the Marine Depot version of one. And I love it, man. I can't complain.
Nice.
I like refugiums and stuff, so I would say the only thing I do different is like a bigger refugium or a separate one. I really like separate refugiums, like where it's remote.
Yep.
Have your sump that you can keep really clean, just for equipment only. And then you can have this gnarly refugium over here that's growing and full of microorganisms and stuff, and you can put substrate in it, not have to worry about any of that debris, substrate or rock getting into your sump.
I feel like you'd really appreciate a nice display refugium, kind of like piped in.
Oh gosh, I'd love it.
Yeah.
I've never done one where it was like, let's just say, of equal attention to the tank, but I've definitely built tanks where it's open filtration. So, and in a sense, that's a display refugium. But yeah, I could see it in my future.
Yeah,
it
cool
would
to do.
probably be more like me to build a tank just for algae and then build a separate system just for coral, not necessarily get the benefit of both.
Yeah, pipe them together, one water change. Save yourself the hassle.
Right.
There actually is a lot of cool macroalgae, like little shaving bush ones look like little Dr. Seuss trees. Like there's all kinds of crazy different types of macroalgae too.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you really, if you focus on it, you can get them to look amazing. And that's definitely something you'll see in the future. I hope to build something that's really like an impressive algae only display.
Yeah, it'd be cool. You should do it. I vote. I like it. And put a bunch of pipefish.
I will
in it.
someday for sure.
That sounds like a good pipefish tank for some reason.
Yeah, pipefish, seahorse. The flow is not going to be. It's still important, but not as important to have gnarly flow. And then you can take your time with scaping it too, which is kind of cool because you're not so limited with the location of the tank. You can kind of move stuff around based on the way it looks, not necessarily on where it needs to be.
I'm with you. Okay, so another one. If your corals aren't growing, so for instance, if you have a bunch of SPS and they're just kind of staying the same forever, usually could be an imbalance or their swing, something, a lack of stability is usually.
Yeah, that's the growth tip thing. So if you're not seeing your growth tips, within let's just say 2 weeks of getting a new coral, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I mean, it's definitely a sign that something's going on and it's not happy. Whether it's lighting, flow, or chemistry, check all three.
Yep.
Move it around, test your water parameters. If those are good, try moving it, try adjusting the flow. But it's going to be one of those three things.
If your parameters are stable, I would give it a good month or so. If nothing's happening, then you could try a new location with different flow, different light levels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at chemistry first, though.
Yes. Yeah. Usually it's swings that I find is till a coral's not happy.
Right. Yeah.
So corals, what else? So if a coral, or you're not getting good coloration out of corals, usually it could be trace elements or lighting. So generally,
yeah. I would say that it's probably more a trace element issue if you're not getting the brilliant color that you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lighting certainly has to do with it and flow as well. But generally, that's just if you put a coral, if you give it too much light, it'll burn.
Mm-hmm.
But with lower lighting, generally I haven't really witnessed a loss of color.
They're generally muted,
it's a
deeper
slower growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just not as obvious. I wouldn't even call it a loss of color. I would just say I'm going to notice less growth if it's insufficient lighting. Now, they're just my observations.
Okay, so I have a question. So what do you consider sufficient lighting? Like which par range, or like what do you aim for in your tanks?
Okay. Excuse me. I'm good with 300 to 400.
Yeah.
For highlight corals. When you get up to the 500 range, it's like
pushing it.
Yeah, I mean, I just burn corals, and so I've had corals close to. I've burned them before. I've changed lighting on coral and burned them, and tested the par values, and they're up 400 or 500, and the corals burn. I drop it back down, and they're fine. So. I've never had a situation where I felt like I was doing something wrong because of insufficient lighting. I've grown SPS in tanks that couldn't have had more than 200 par value, or less than that, even like in the hundreds. So I think corals will survive in lower light environments than we really think.
They'll survive. They just might not thrive, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you may not get the growth and the appearance that you might expect or have seen online when you got the coral or whatever.
Usually, I just find they're not as bright, and they might just not grow very quick.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If they're, but there's only so much photosynthesis that can happen in a day, and if everything else is in line and you're giving it the light it needs, it cannot grow beyond a certain point. It cannot, metabolize more than, and more light is not going to you can't just keep increasing the light, it's not really going to do anything for you. So once you're kind of at the maximum growth per day, I don't think that more lighting is going to do anything for you.
There was actually I think it was Dana Riddle, someone did a talk on it where it was basically the growth got stunted after a certain point where it's received its kind of max micromoles of light per day.
Right.
So like corals in the shade were almost doing better than ones in direct sun and like little shallow pools. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of exactly what I'm getting at is, I think that it's more, you should focus more on the stability of the tank. And a lot of the problems that guys will describe and they address with these other issues, it's that stability thing, Changes happen quick in a fish tank.
Yep.
Alkalinity is a tricky one. It's made up of a lot of different elements. And so when you're just putting sodium bicarbonate or sodium carbonate in your tank and you're thinking that's all you need to do to maintain an alk, it's really an incomplete picture of what your alk should be. That's why the water change to replenish trace elements or the addition of the use of an additive is so important for alk.
Water changes are a good safety net.
Yeah.
I know there's like a big anti-water change mentality, but there really are. Like even on my smaller tanks, whenever I did regular water changes, they always look their best.
Yeah.
Like they still look good but they always look better if I actually did, my little bucket a week type of thing just to replenish.
Any fish tank issue?
Do water change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or multiples, so with that knowledge and people that have done it for years before us, I really am not. It's really hard for me to believe, and just the plain so it's an enclosed environment, and I get it. We've found efficient ways to export nutrients and things that build up, but if we're doing this in the name of keeping these things healthy and looking their best, why not do the water change?
Exactly. Good motivation. Go do one today.
It's a pain in the butt, but at the end of the day, it's we're doing this because we love the corals, and so
my Long-term goal is going to be just automate, just do like a gallon a day and just keep it
Yeah,
all happy.
it's tough with a saltwater tank. Freshwater tanks,
Hmm.
easy peasy because you don't have to worry about salt. You don't have to worry about salinity. But in a saltwater tank, it takes a little bit more skill in monitoring to get it done right.
No, that's fair.
That I mean, I guess auto water change is different than like a constant water change. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm referring to, where there's like a constant drip of new water going in the tank.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it'd mess with your salinity with your auto top off potentially. You'd have to suck and add at the same time. So
exactly, and that
yeah.
makes it difficult because the rate you got evaporation in there, which throws you all off.
Well,
So
I actually built one before. I had a like a triple head dosing pump. It was one pump with like three
uh-huh.
different things on it, and so you could tune each head
Oh,
with a little
three
screw.
three channels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I actually built one for a nano at one point, so it would take it out and add at the exact same time, so the water level wouldn't change, so it
And
didn't mess with the.
it's operating off the same wheel,
Yeah, it's
so
one wheel with.
essentially
Yeah.
it's should be the same amount
Yep.
going through as long as nothing messed with the tubing.
One of my previous little projects.
Yeah, that's a neat one. That's a neat one. Did you find that the salinity was you were able to keep it stable?
Yeah, it was like a little 12-gallon tank that I had at the time, but yeah, it worked. Worked well.
That's cool. That's neat. Yeah,
I like to automate things.
I know, Devin.
What's me? Never. So a couple of other things. If your water is cloudy, that usually could be a bacterial bloom in your tank or an algae bloom. So
Yeah,
that's
that one. That's cloudy water is the go-to answer is a bacterial bloom.
mhm,
But stirring up my sand bed causes my water to be cloudy.
temporarily.
The
Yeah.
addition of additives causes the water to be cloudy. You've
Hmm.
added too much too quick, causes the
Yep.
water to be cloudy. The color of the cloud, that's kind of something that'll indicate what's going on. But with a bacterial bloom, if it just happened out of nowhere, generally speaking, that's what's causing it.
Yep. Exactly. Method. Do you think that UV has more influence on fluorescing than just the blue spectrum? Oh, for coral glow. It makes the corals glow because they kind of reflect that light and gives that
Yeah, that's about the way that our eyes see it, not necessarily the
what they
color.
like. But I
Yeah.
mean, I was playing with the UV flashlight on my tank, seeing corals glow like crazy the other day. So it definitely makes them glow to us.
Yeah, I would say it's required to have the true UV ultraviolet spectrum in there to get a fluorescence out of it. So yeah, I mean you need to have the UV in there in order for it to glow. The straight blue light is not going to give you the fluorescence like you would with the UV.
You still get color pop and glow because it's like similar, but it's not quite there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as psychedelic.
Not as blacklight poster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a little disco in the tank.
I guess we could test it with this poster behind me.
There you go.
If I had, we were playing with some of those flashlights this morning, but I don't think I have like a straight blue one. I think all the only ones I have are
UV.
They have UV in them. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's. I think it's by my tank.
Yeah.
I legitly found it like last week, and the corals, the colors of the corals completely change. It's crazy how much it can be different.
Yeah, no, it's different. God, that would be kind of fun.
Yep.
Should I turn the lights off and shine it on the poster?
If it's you can find it and it's close.
All right.
Do you know
me,
what? Okay.
10 seconds.
All
I'll
right.
be back.
Okay. On the note of the UV stuff, I actually bought a bunch of UV paints the other day. I want to try painting some coral poster, something cool. I don't know yet, but I bought a bunch of airbrush UV paints, so it should be something kind of fun to do. Auto aqua water change is nice. Yeah, any automating water changes is great. I think it's a huge benefit to doing it.
All right, I'm back.
Got the flashlight.
I got it.
Let it glow. Let it glow.
Oh, where are we at? Where are we at?
Oh.
Oh, it's kind of bright, huh? You can't really see it.
It doesn't show up as much. It just goes super bright, but I know
Yeah,
we're
it
not
goes
seeing
super bright.
the glorious of the glow.
It's kind of neat right there. You can kind of see it a little bit,
Yeah.
but then you get it on there and it. Well, to me, it looks beautiful and bright green.
I'm envisioning it.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So Ash was asking, could we talk about the smell of the tank as being an indicator for ammonia and saltwater are obviously different?
Sure.
So ammonia does have a distinctive smell. If you've ever ordered a fish or coral or something online, you open the bag, sometimes you'll be able to smell that bit of a ammonia smell. It could be something in the water. There is ammonia. I've never smelt it directly from a reef tank. I mean, once it's cycled, it's processing it. Generally, if the water does smell a bit funky, that just means it could be a buildup of organics in the water, and that usually just says time to throw in some carbon in the tank and get rid of that ocean smell.
Yeah, a dirty tank is going to smell a lot worse. So there's definitely a difference between dirty salt water. It just has a stronger sulfur smell to it, and then your clean salt water it's like fresh salt water. More reminds me of like the beach as opposed to like a lagoon or like
Seaweed on the beach.
Yeah, just gross. Definitely witness both. Oh, let's look at this. Use your skimmer for reference. So that sort of sulfur skimmer smell you get, if your tank starts smelling like that, definitely got a nutrient issue.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you'll be able to have sort of a clean saltwater smell, like a beach smell. And to me, I'm so used to it at this point, I don't even notice it. But
usually my wife points it out. I'm like, all right, time to run carbon, I guess.
I've had people come in and they'll be like, I did it last week. I harvested Chaetomorpha on a Friday, and I left it in the trash can until Monday. Everything was fine, and then I got in, and I was like, oh, man, I should have thrown this away. As soon as I picked it up, poof, it was gone. I was like, oh, my gosh. I'm sorry, guys. I did not mean to do this. Then I go throw it away. But
nice. That happens. Yeah, you do kind of get used to it to an extent, though, unless it's something really bad.
Right, yeah.
Do you, yeah, so carbon is good. If your water is yellowy, which if you run hardcore blue lights, you won't really notice it. If you're running more white lights, you might notice it. Like if you look like the long end of your tank, sometimes you can see that yellow tinge to the water. That's usually organics built up. So
carbon will do it.
Carbon will do it. Ozone will also do it. I'm still a fan of ozone. I think it's lots of benefits in moderation.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's great for a tank. Certainly great for big systems and situations where you've got to process a lot of fish waste. For home tanks, I generally don't opt to put it on a tank because it's just another thing to deal with.
Yeah.
You gotta, and then its effect on your skimmer kind of sucks. For as much as we spend on skimmers and how
now if
how much time to maintain them, to have it break down like that is just kind of.
So if you are going to consider running ozone on it, some skimmers are rated for it and some aren't. If it's not rated for it, it will break down your skimmer and it'll start to crack and yellow over long term. So there's two types of acrylic. There's extruded and cast, and I don't remember which one's which, but one of them's ozone friendly and the other isn't. So just make sure your skimmer is rated for if you do go down that road.
Yeah. And when you say rated for, it's resistant, not proof.
Yeah.
So it's just like a watch, man. Water resistant, waterproof. So the ozone is going to break down
eventually any
material. It's going to have an effect on it. So just expect that. It just, you can usually get through the life of the skimmer, the expected life of the skimmer. Let's just say 5 years or so before the ozone takes any effect. But you will notice it. It'll cause crazing and cracking or yellowing, and then the plastic becomes brittle.
Yeah. So far, so good. I've been using it for a while, but I run it at super low concentration.
Do you run it through the skimmer, or do you have like
through the skimmer?
Okay, yeah. And I would, if I was to do it on like a big system, I would probably opt for a reactor. Just to do it that way, just so I wouldn't affect the skimmer.
Skimmer upgrade in 4 or 5 years.
But I've never put on a home aquarium.
No?
I've only installed them on fish store systems or larger systems where there's a lot of fish. Like the person likes to collect, so there's a lot of fish. But typical reef tank, I don't necessarily think there's a need for it. However, I'm in the camp of like a reef tank should not have a lot of fish.
Yeah.
So if you're in the camp and you're trying to stock and build a fully mixed reef, you're pretty much doing everything else you can to work against yourself and make it hard for you to succeed. But, and those are the situations where the ozone might be beneficial to you because you've got a lot of fish. You need to sort of break down that. Mixed reefs are tough, man.
That's the only way to go, though.
I know, as much as I tell people and talk about it, but it's such a tough approach,
But how could you limit yourself to only one type of coral?
It's hard, believe me. All mine are mixed, even though I try to tell myself it's like, okay, SPS tank, LPS tank, and then, got a little lagoon tank over here.
Nice.
And I find myself moving stuff. Like if something has an issue and I can't figure it out, I'll move it to the new tank and all of a sudden it does great. It just happens. Believe me, I get it.
Yep, I just couldn't do it. Although I might do an all rock flower tank.
There you go.
Or I'm just gonna start adding them to the nano, and only new corals that will enter the tank will be rock flowers. so what's in there can stay, but the new stuff's only rock flowers. So I might do that.
Yeah.
Buildup of organics creating a film on the surface. Ah,
Yeah,
that
the
definitely
protein
happens. You
line.
get a protein layer. Usually it's from foods and other stuff you're adding to the tank.
Yep.
It will, depending on your flow, make its way down the overflow. That is actually one thing I've actually battled with being a peninsula tank, is to make sure I get that peninsula end to the overflow so I don't see the little protein layer. If you're looking at the tank top down, normally you don't notice it, but if you look bottom up, you tend to see it on the surface.
Yeah. You sometimes you'll get them in the corners. That's why they have a surface overflow. That's what it pulls from the surface, is to pull that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, a protein skimmer is if your protein skimmer is efficient and you're emptying it and everything, a lot of times it wouldn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
or it won't happen. But if you've got something strange with your flow to where it's trapping the surface water in one area,
Mm-hmm.
like creates a little whirlpool or something, that's generally the times that I'll see it.
I,
You can easily remove it too. Just take a piece of paper towel and lay it on the
mm-hmm.
surface, come right off.
I used to take like a measuring cup type of thing and just let it suck it in, just surface skim it, and that was
Oh
a
yeah,
layer.
yeah, that's another way. I've always just done the paper towel method because it works quick. Obviously, you don't want to leave paper towel in your fish tank, so
Mm-hmm.
just lay it on and pull it right off, and it tends to get a lot of it at once.
Exactly. So someone's asking, are rock flowers dangerous to any coral? They're pretty nice overall. I had a torch fall on a rock flower and it killed the rock flower, so the torch won that battle. Bubble tips, I find if they're rubbing against SPS, they may kill some of the edges of it. But
Yeah.
rock flowers, I don't think I've had them take out any corals. They've only lost the
Yeah,
battle.
I've been lucky with the rock flower or flower nems. Let's just call them flower nems, so nobody thinks we're talking about Aptasia here.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't moved on me. Like, I think they're beautiful nems. The ones that were more pesky for me were those pizza nems, like the little God, they call them pizza nems, but they're maxi mini carpet nems. The
Oh,
little
mini
carpet
maxi.
nems.
Yeah,
Yeah, those things. That was one that was not
they're
fun.
sticky.
Yeah, they're super
touch them?
sticky,
They're like,
and I mean, they didn't move around a lot, but they killed fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The rock flowers have been pretty good in my tank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty friendly. 12, yep. Maybe more. I'm gonna try breeding rock flowers. It's gonna be one of my future upcoming projects. I think it'll
Yeah,
be
I'm
fun.
excited, man. That's gonna be a fun one. If you could get some lock on one of the ultra colored
I
flower nem genetics, man, that'd be cool.
I may have 12 ultras that I'm buying.
Attaboy.
Yep. So it'll be good. I'm excited for it. I love rock flowers, so the Red Sea Nano is gonna turn into a rock flower tank soon.
Awesome. That'll be fun.
Yep.
And you can selectively breed them too for color.
Exactly. But I figure, I know you're gonna get a mix no matter what you do. But I figure if I start with a bunch of ultras, I have a good gene stock, and then hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, at least your DNA has got a heavier population of ultra color.
Yeah. Good chance of beautiful rock nems. So I don't know. That'll be fun. Future upcoming project. What else didn't we cover? Fish actually. Fish rubbing against coral is usually a good sign of ick.
Flashing. Yeah, the flashing of the rubbing. It's kind of natural behavior for external parasites. So, if it's just a one-off or you've witnessed it, it could just be that something's on the skin of the fish that irritated it. But if it's ever I've seen it in clownfish the most.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they, I think it has to do with their sort of hosting behavior. You know how they have that sort of swim pattern where they'll kind of want to rub up on something.
Yep.
But I've seen it when they're unhealthy. They'll kind of do weird things on the bottom. They'll kind of almost like they're hosting the sand bed, and then they'll flash on it. When I say flash, they'll move real quick on their side, rub their side on the bottom. Tangs, they'll kind of lay on their side and go real quick.
Yeah, my powder blue was doing that for 4 or 5 days. He would just rub against my ACAMs, just go little dive bomb and.
Yeah, I would say if it's constant and you notice it lasts more than a day, you probably got an issue. Something's going on with that fish, and you try to want to, look at it closely, see if you can.
I'm gonna say it lasted 4 or 5 days, then he quit. So something went away.
That's a good thing, I mean, you didn't treat it for ick or anything, right? Or see any visual signs of it or anything.
Yep. Someone's asking, can I ask if it's common for fungi plate coral to form another mouth? I don't think they split. They have babies, so that's a good one.
They have the babies, yeah. So I've never seen one have two mouths. It's usually just one. Just a fungia, right?
Yeah.
Not like a discosoma.
Yeah, I'm assuming a plate coral. I'm guessing. If it's a mushroom, like fungi mushroom, then yes, they can split. But plate coral, generally, they'll have little babies.
Yeah.
Which is more toxic, leathers like devil hand, etc., or zoas? G- So the whole palytoxin thing, it's kind of like Russian roulette. Some zoas have it, some don't. I don't think there's any clear way of knowing which ones do and which ones don't. So there's always a chance that one could have a palytoxin. As for leathers having toxins, generally some leathers will excrete a toxin to kind of ward off other corals and trying to keep their territory. So that's one benefit of running carbon or ozone. It will kind of break down those toxins, so it's less of an issue in a mixed reef tank. So that's why it's good to run carbon, once every month or so, run it for a little bit. But in general, yeah, like haven't really had any big issues with it personally. But if you're fragging them, like it's always a good idea, wear glasses, don't have your mouth hanging open as you're cutting open something fleshy.
Yeah. With that, I've never had too much of an issue. I've had weird sensations in my hands. I'm not a glove user. I just never have been. And if I get little cuts or something, like after working on, it usually happens when I'm moving tanks, because you're lifting the rocks and you're getting all in there and everything. And I'll get some weird sensations in my hands, but that's kind of the worst it's ever been for me. But I haven't really sat there for days and days on end chopping up, rocks full of pallies either. So.
Yep. Okay, so someone's asking, will magnesium 1540 cause coral not to open up fully? So that's getting on the high side.
You said above 1540?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, you're going to see some irritation on the coral, and you get even higher, they could bleach out.
Inverts tend to not appreciate those higher levels too.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. Some people purposely will elevate it to try and combat like baropsis and certain algae, but in general, 1450 is kind of the high end for me. So that's a bit higher. I've never purposely had it that high, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was potentially irritating some things.
Yeah, definitely.
To tell. Okay, 1 sec. Okay. What? Well, I mean, there is a way to tell you can try eating them. Oh, I would not try eating any corals. That's a terrible idea.
Coral?
It only works the first time you find palytoxin. Yeah. Not recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? I know they eat sea cucumbers, obviously algae.
Yeah, let's don't eat that. Just don't do it. Just don't put anything from your tank in your mouth. That's just a good general rule of life.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah. Down south reefer. Oh, so how do you lower the magnesium? Either don't dose it for a while, let it lower on its own, or you could do some water changes with a salt mix that has a lower magnesium, so it's just going to dilute it and lower it down. Or just don't dose it and let it naturally drop over the next month or so.
Right.
Toxins in the water column, not towards us. Will those toxins kill SPS in general? Okay, so corals will release, some soft corals will release a bit of a toxin or something to ward off people to its territory. And I have read that it can inhibit growth of certain corals around it. I can't say if that's true, but I do know that you can, running carbon once in a while will eat up that toxins out of the water and negate that issue. So it is something to consider. So Billy was saying water changes with Fritz will lower magnesium since it's 1350. There you go.
Yeah, and I think the point there is, okay, do a water change, but you have to understand that the water that you're using a water change with, or the salt mix, needs to have that lower mag, or the ideal mag, below the level that you're testing for in your tank to bring it down.
If it's the same, you're just not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's the D&D H2O Ocean. That one's got the higher mag in it. And there's probably some others out there I just don't know about. But yeah, you just got to make sure that.
Yeah, okay. So he says not dosing anything, just doing weekly water changes with reef crystals. So you may have potentially just had a batch that had really high magnesium. Might be worth just testing your freshly made salt water and see where it's at. Sometimes when you have a bucket of salt too, when they mix the chemicals, like certain particles will be heavier and lighter than others. So if you don't mix up the bucket, sometimes, there may be a bunch of, calcium or alk that settled lower in the bucket. And maybe the magnesium was lighter at the top. Like there is potentials for stuff to separate it. So sometimes it is worth just shaking your bucket up a little bit and making sure all those grains get remixed together so it's distributed. So it's something to consider. What's going on, Davis, Mike? Welcome, guys. Is there any other common ones that you'd say for just a sign that something's off or something's funky with the tank that we didn't get to?
Okay, so yeah, if I'm looking at a tank trying to figure things out, I'll look at the polyps. Then I'll look at the fish bellies. We never talked about that. Fat fish are healthy fish. So
Yep.
understand what your fish's belly looks like when it's full. That way you can know if you're feeding sufficiently, or if a fish is not getting enough food. So you got 10 fish, 9 of them have full, fat, healthy bellies and are always eating. One doesn't. It's important for you to be able to identify that and then observe the tank and see why that fish isn't getting the food, efficiently, or why it's not getting food. Probably just not as aggressive a fish, and you got to pull it out. But
Yep.
It's important to just understand what that looks like. Gosh, what else? The sand bed's important to look at. If you're constantly growing stuff on there, you've obviously got to detritus build up down there, which we talked about. Water color. I generally won't look at the color of the water. It.
You can have particles in the water. I mean, that could be. That's not.
I'll notice that, but it's not something that's like
a big deal.
I really am looking at the health of the animal.
Yeah.
The coral or the fish, whatever. But I think it's the main thing to get from this is just it's important for you to know what your animals in your care look like when they're healthy and when they're not healthy.
So at the end of the day, stare at your tank every day and get a good feel for it. And then when you see something's off, then you'll notice it.
Yeah, definitely. And look at multiples. I mean, go online. Give yourself a point of reference. Look for other corals.
That's true. You could see it and you think it's perfect because that's all you know.
Yeah, or take a picture of it at the fish store. Sometimes they look completely different. You get them under your lighting, you get them in your tank, and it could be either better or for worse. You never know, but it's going to look different than what's in the fish store. And how are you to know what is better or for worse if you've never kept the coral before? So, really, observation is big here.
Yeah, no, definitely with you.
And that's when they talk about guys like being able to tell the health of a tank just by looking at it, or being able to get away with not testing. It's because they've observed so many aquariums that you can, and then also it's only you that are controlling what's going into the tank, so you understand where the problems could be. If that makes any sense, know.
Billy, who's taller, Dev or Robert? I don't remember who's taller.
Between who? Devin.
Me and you.
Devin's taller for sure.
Am I?
Probably, yeah. Probably
You're
close,
not too far off, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm 5'10", so.
Okay. Oh, I'm 6'1". Okay. I got
you
some
got a
on
few
you.
inches on me.
That's fair.
Yes, you're definitely taller.
It's been a few months since I've seen you in person.
I like to say I'm 5'10" and a half.
That's fair. I might be 6'1" and a smidge. That's good. All right, I think we got. Hopefully, I answered anyone's question. If I missed your question, feel free to ask it again. But I think we covered most of it.
Here, I'm gonna go down our little list here. Did we cover everything? Yeah, I guess we did.
Yep. How about algae on dry rock in a new tank? So I'm assuming in the tank, not dry. Otherwise, I would clean that rock first.
Yeah, algae on dry rock in a new tank. Okay, so essentially it's
started with dry rock, new tank.
Yeah. New tanks, they go through cycles of algae. It's pretty typical and normal. The trick here is to starve it out and not allow it to get a stronghold in the tank. That's when algae problems become difficult. So first, arm yourself with the knowledge of why algae grows. Once you understand that, do everything you can to starve it out without harming other animals in your tank. So don't strip it completely, but keep your phosphates and your nitrates low, and then and keep that up.
Yeah.
Don't just drop it this week and then let it climb over the next 3 weeks. I find a lot of people do that, and then they'll call me on the 4th week and be like, I can't get it done. I'm like, well, you dropped it that first week, but you just kept feeding and letting your nitrates and phosphate come right back up. And it's got to be persistent. You got to starve that stuff for weeks and weeks on end. And that's what's going to happen in the new tank is just be mindful of those waste levels as you start to add things into the aquarium.
With lots of algae, like hair algae and stuff, generally, if there's a lot of nutrients, the algae's strong. Like, it's harder to pull it off. And once you get your nutrients lower, it'll be easy to just take it off like nothing, right? It kind of weakens it in a sense, so it's easy to remove it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And physical removal, too. I mean, that's with cyano. I always tell people algae's easy. We understand why it grows, and it's, we can get rid of it if you do what you're supposed to do. So persistently removing it out of the tank is one of the best ways to get it. But it's not going to be effective if you let that algae cover an entire rock. If you pull it when it's a little tuft or two, then you're good.
Yeah.
And you do that every week. But if you let it grow to, this big softball or cover an entire rock, like, well, now
Mm-hmm. It adds up. Yeah, get ahead of it. Oh, you're muted again. I think you unplugged your wire. There you
shame
go.
on you for that one. Don't let it get out of control.
Yeah. Is it possible to tell which element is missing just from looking at coral color? That would take a pretty keen eye on that one.
Yeah.
I have overdosed trace elements and saw colors change.
Yep.
So, I mean, potentially you might be able to derive something from that, but I think you're at coral whisperer level. If you look at it and you're like, oh, I'm low in potassium. Ah, a little more iodine.
Yeah, I agree with you, Devin. That's a tough one. I mean, there's definitely science out there, and there's some great information or studies that have been done on the effects of various minor and trace elements and coral color.
Yeah.
There's concrete science that we know this element affects the color in this coral. But it's pretty tough to be able to look at it right away, because it's like, okay, so say you got this green slimer. Well, what is to tell me like my green is better than your green?
Well, the other thing is, too, it depends on what time of day and your lights are at. I mean, 10, 12, 14, 18, 20K, every single spectrum is going to look like a different green, right?
Sure.
So that every tank looks different just from the lighting. We got
Yeah,
T5, different bulb, LEDs.
You got variables. You got our eyeballs in there. You got the lighting. Yeah, I suppose you're right.
Yeah, but some of my corals, like between the nano and my big tank, like some look better in my big tank, some look better by my nano. Is it the light? Is it the different elements that are being dosed to the tank? Like, it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
That's like expert level.
Yeah, and for
Coral
me,
whisper.
but everybody looks at this differently too. Like some guys really care about manipulating the color in the coral, and that's something they want to do. For me, I just like to grow big, healthy coral colonies. Like I love to see the growth. I mean, it fascinates me to grow things. And so, if I can grow this gnarly colony in the tank of a brown coral, I'm still pretty happy, because it's like, ooh, I got this really cool colony. I grew it. I watched it happen. Or you got this little tiny fluorescent frag that grows this much in 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm not really excited about that, So
I see your logic.
that's just me.
I like them big and colorful.
But yeah, colors. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But yeah, I mean, trying to manipulate those colors and stuff. I think 9 out of 10 hobbyists, you should just be concerned with maintaining the stability and ensuring that it's all there.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to boost and reduce to, manipulate the color.
No, that's fair. Okay, Tim was asking, what can I use to reduce nitrate? GFO is good for phosphate. What's good for nitrate? If I do a 1.5 gallon auto water change, would that suffice? So auto water change will go a long ways.
Daily.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your tank size, but yes. So auto water change definitely will help. One of the biggest things is just having a refugium, to be honest, because it's going to suck away your phosphates and your nitrates. It's going to take them both. Another option is carbon dosing, but you need to have phosphates in order to reduce your nitrates, so keep that in mind. I see some people it hasn't worked. It's because they basically used up, GFO or something else sucked up their phosphates, and then you're not going to have that ratio to actually do it. So
bacteria can't grow without both.
Yeah, so a big refugium, turf scrubber, chaetoractor, whatever. I do like algae, like a natural way of doing it, but carbon dosing is another way to do it if you're still having issues you can't get past.
Yeah. There is nitrate medias. So, you got your media that's biological and works on anaerobic activity. And you also have like resin medias that target specifically nitrates. The resin media is probably the most efficient and effective way to do it immediately.
Is there a nitrate resin?
Yeah, there is a nitrate resin. The Blue Life just came out with it.
That's
it's
cool.
Been around for a while, but never really specifically marketed for, because it's so expensive. And when we're dealing with, let's just say 20, 30, ppms nitrate, it's like this $20 can of media is not going to be able to hold a ton. What makes this Blue Life stuff usable is that it's regenerable, so you can reuse it. And I think it's finally gotten to that point to where now it's economical enough for us to use it.
Well, it's actually affordable-ish if you can reuse it over and over again, right? Versus one-time use.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my point. Is like, because you can regenerate it and use it over again, it makes more sense to use it. But when you look at the big picture, you really want to address the issue of a consistent.
The source.
Yeah, you want to cut the source, man, because you're going to constantly be changing out media and spending money on media when you could
prevent
install a refugium or just change your filter socks more often. Whatever wherever the problem is.
Yep. I had a question that came from a minute ago. What the heck was it now? Oh, I'll go back to it in a sec. I totally missed it. Not totally off topic, but I've never used one. But there's a thing called a sulfur denitrator,
Yep.
specifically targets nitrates.
Hmm.
I don't, for whatever reason, I don't think they're very popular because I never hear about them. I just know of
Yeah,
them.
okay. What's it? Aficionado's going through a denitrator right now, which is
Hmm.
really interesting to see about.
I
He
knew
said
when
it's
he's
this old
trying.
technology that's
Yep.
kind of been reunited. So we'll see with that one. I'm really curious to learn about it. But
Hmm.
that's essentially like controlled carbon dosing. You're there is a denitrator where you take basically essentially airline tubing or quarter-inch tubing, and you coil it
Hmm.
100 times on itself, and you slowly drip water through it, and that creates anaerobic bacteria, just like inside of your rock.
Hmm.
So that's a denitrate. And then the sulfur. The sulfur is nice because it
Here, Robert,
use yeah.
move your little wire off your mic. I keep hearing rattling. Nope, just the wires in front of it. There we go. Perfect.
I'm back.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, and then the sulfur denitrators. What's cool is it's got calcium median to help get the pH back up. It's self-contained, so the sulfur
Hmm.
feeds the bacteria. So they're efficient. They work.
Yep.
Once you get it set up and dialed in, it doesn't really need a lot of tuning, which is nice.
Hmm.
But it's just
Yep.
another piece of equipment under your tank.
Yep. So Woken was saying biopellets target nitrate. So biopellets is essentially just carbon dosing.
Yeah.
It's basically using a pellet that's your carbon source versus, your Nopox, your vodka, vinegar, whatever else you're using. So end of the day, same thing. It's you're feeding bacteria to process it, and you're using whatever said media to grow the bacteria population.
Sure.
Yep. So Daticus was saying sulfur denitrification takes time to ramp up, but once it is, can do some serious numbers on nitrate buildup. Yeah.
I mean, I think you can go in and come out zero
Mm-hmm.
on any of
Really?
those
Yeah.
factors. Once they're established, like they can be really, really efficient
Mm-hmm.
within acceptable ranges.
Yep. Perfect. Well, I think I've stolen you for a little over an hour now, so I think we'll.
Has it been that long? Well,
Yeah.
I must have been having fun.
I know it just flew by. I just looked down at the clock. I was like, "Woo!" Yeah. Sulfur denitrators. They were a thing in the past, and I never hear about them. I don't really know why. I'm kind of curious about them. I have heard rumors of some newer ones coming out, so waiting to see how those test out. But it's interesting.
It's because growing a refugium is just so much fun.
Yeah, it's true. You can go. I stare at mine a lot more now because I have like the whiter light in there with the new prime light on it, so
Yeah.
you can see all the little creatures in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Oh, I
fun.
love it, man. That's my favorite thing at night is to
Mhm.
look in there and to see what I can find and like the different organisms. Like if you look, man, there's
Tons.
definitely a variety of species, that naturally grow in there. It's
Mhm.
pretty neat. Little shrimps and then pods and
I found like
larvae.
a monster pod. Like he was like that. Like he was huge. My
Yeah.
wife's like, "There's a big shrimp in there," and I came and looked, nothing. And I was sitting there the other day and I actually saw it. I was like standing across the room and I could see this monster pod is on the Chato.
Yeah. When I harvested that Kato I talked about earlier, that was last Friday or 2 Fridays ago. I can't remember. Yeah, I found one that's as big as my fingertip. I mean, this pod was huge, and there was 2 or 3 of them that I'd pulled off that Kato clump.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but
awesome.
it
It's fun.
benefits you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun.
refugiums are nice. They have multiple benefits. So,
So what's on the list for you? Are you hitting any aquarium shows this year? Or?
no, not many aquarium shows on the menu. We're gonna sort of sit back and do something a little different here with trade shows. I'll probably attend a few,
Yep.
but not gonna really like exhibit or do anything there. I'll get out and try to produce some content and like cover some of the shows like I've done in the past. But definitely not going to exhibit like some of the years past.
Yep.
Really focus on ramping up the video production, so we're
Nice.
trying to increase the frequency there. Also the quality. We've added some resources to the team.
Nice.
We're created a team now, so yeah, I've
Not
got
just
some
a one man show any.
yeah, not a one-man show anymore, which is nice. I'm getting help from outside contribution as well as allows me to sort of focus on the content that I create and make it better, make it more developed. So you're going to see definitely some more complicated and advanced videos from us, which is cool.
Nice. That'd be cool.
But really just also getting back to some of the basics. We find that people just they want to learn about the hobby when they come. I mean, they come to our site and that's what they want to do is they want to learn about the hobby. So really just addressing some of those the essential how to keep an aquarium topics. So you'll probably see us address some of those things
Nice.
Pest control is one we're doing right now, which has
Mhm.
been hugely popular. You're going to see, in addition to the pest control, how to control your nitrate, how to
Mhm.
get rid of algae, how to control phosphate,
Nice.
just some
The core
of the
stuff.
stuff that
Core
we see is
essentials.
basic, but is actually applicable to a lot of people.
Hey, there's people that shut down tanks over an algae issue, and a lot of them aren't that hard to solve. So it is definitely something that's good to put out there.
Yeah,
more
certainly.
more free giveaways. Hey, actually, speaking of
Yes.
giveaways, if you have not entered yet, what's the date? I think it ends next week. Yeah, next week. On my Instagram, we're giving away a marine depot control board.
Oh yeah, the controller board. Yes, go
Yes.
enter. Do it. They're
So
fun. They will change your life if you have a controller.
Instagram.com/ReefDudes. I have one in my nano tank right now. They're awesome. Makes your sand look extra next level, minty, crispy, clean. So make sure you enter if you're on Instagram.
Do it.
Yep, I think next Wednesday is going to be the draw, so get in there. And part of that, actually, Coral shows. I heard rumors that Marine Depot is sponsoring the Niagara Coral Show, which is
Yes,
next
yes,
month.
definitely. I talked to Ken, can't remember his name, but yeah, next
Brian,
month.
yeah.
Yeah, we did sponsor that show, so go check it out if you're in the area.
Ooh, look at that.
You're gonna be there, right, Devin?
I'm going to be there.
Yeah, what are you gonna do there?
I'm doing a talk there.
Yeah, what's it gonna be about?
I still have to finish it. So, if any of you guys are in Niagara Falls or Toronto or surrounding area, come say hi. It'll be good.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. So that'll be fun. So doing that one, and then for me, the next one going to that is keep on reefing. So
That should be a fun
KOR,
one.
that should be good.
I haven't been there yet, but those great group of people that put that show on really have a good time with those guys. So hopefully I can get out.
If you can come, you
that
should.
show. Yeah.
Yep.
What's the date on that one?
May 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Early in the year, it's going to be tough for me. There's definitely a lot going on, but I'm going to try the summer and then, the fall shows. I'm going to try to get out, and ideally I'll be around then.
Oh, so that'll be good. All right. We'll have to plan something for fall. Those are the only two I've booked so far, but I'm sure I'll sneak in one or two more. We'll see.
Are you going to come to California this year?
I don't know. Maybe. For a wrap or which one?
Yeah, for rap.
Would be fun. I want to do it.
Generally, that's one I'm always going to attend.
Yeah. Well, it's nice and close for you.
Yeah.
I did last year I did Rap Orlando, so that's next month. In a month, no, a month after.
Yeah, that one's hard to beat, man. You're in a cool area. Again, a great group of people that put on the show, and there's just so much to do. So that's a fun one to attend for sure.
When's the Rap California?
That one's going to be it's usually beginning of November or late October. Typically every year. I want to say it's mid-October.
That might happen. That might have potential.
I can look the date up.
Okay. I know I'm doing Macna because that's at Disney World. So
there you
we're
go.
gonna go to Disney with the wife, make a little vacation.
Out here for sure.
I'll see what I can do.
I want to take you fishing, man.
All right, I'm in.
All kinds of cool stuff to see out here.
You are a very hardcore fisherman.
I love it.
You know all the secrets. You can teach me the ways.
I will do my very best.
My fishing skills is basically trolling and then hopefully get you stuff.
yeah. I'm I don't know, man. I got the bug early on, and I mean it. It carries over to my love for fish tanks too. But I was fishing before I was keeping an aquarium. That's for sure.
Hey, on one of the Marine Depot videos, I saw you caught a fish, gave him a little kiss, and threw him back.
I did. That was a recent one.
Yeah.
That was I did. I work with this local university, Concordia University, and they've got their professor Sean Binyami. He's just awesome, and we made an agreement to do some videos, and I just got to know him, and then his senior graduate student Noah, who runs the Marine Lab. They're just great dudes. Nice. Obviously, we have a lot in common. And so we just kind of developed from there, and they've invited me out to go on collection trips, and it's really been really cool. I've been able to help them in the lab and sort of apply some of the things that I know about aquariums, help them overcome equipment issues. And then, generally from them, I'm learning all kinds of cool stuff, from the science end of it in terms of identifying species and, just various things that we don't see on our end,
That's cool. Okay, what was the weird little yellow creature in the thumbnail? I had no idea what that was. What is it?
Yes,
it's cool looking.
That is a nudibranch or a sea slug. I'm not sure which one it was, but interesting story about that is I was blown away by that thing too. And
it was crazy
when it came out of the water, I'm like, what, did you find, a banana slug or something? And had no idea they existed off our coast. And then we go back, and he opens up the ID book, and he showed me what it was. I can't remember if it was a sea slug or a nudibranch, but it was definitely one of those two. And yeah, they're endemic off the coast here. They are there's a couple different types too,
Hmm.
but all of them are sort of that yellow brown color.
Huh.
And big. They're actually
It's
pretty big. It wasn't
substantial.
tiny like a little nudibranch. Like this
Hmm.
thing was a good 4 or 5 inches
Hmm.
left to right. So
Nice.
it was substantial size.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool looking. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I was
it
really
was
curious
neat.
what that was. I don't think he's in the video, so I just remembered
Yeah.
to ask.
You'd be surprised, man. I mean, a lot of people don't think these temperate or colder water coasts, they harbor just as much life as tropical reefs. You just gotta,
Hmm.
be brave and get down there to look at it. I
Hmm.
mean, you could certainly be fascinated all day long just by staring at it. And we have reefs.
Yep.
It's just they're just not warm water. That's the
Yeah.
only difference.
I haven't done it yet, but supposedly off Vancouver Island, like there's some amazing cold water like diving over there. So
Are they real deep, or do you know?
I don't know, but I know there's like cold water corals like everywhere, like even just the rock flowers and stuff on like some of the
Yeah,
shallow areas, and like these crazy vibrant like greens and pink nems. Like there's tons
yeah,
of
yeah,
crazy stuff. So
yeah.
one
We
day I got
have
to do that.
Yeah, no, I out here in the tide pools and stuff, we got some beautiful nems, and there's some deep water acropora that grow, little polyps. There's all kinds of polyps, man. There's
Hmm.
tons of polyps that grow everywhere. And if you take the time to like just look on like the post of a jetty or gosh, I can't remember, a pier. If
Hmm.
you look at those posts, you just
Oh,
go in a
tons.
few feet. I mean,
Hmm.
you'll see all kinds of cool stuff growing on those things.
Yep. Nope. Super cool. Okay. Someone's just asking, where was it? Uh, Devin and Robert, if you had to choose your absolute most favorite device related to reefing, what would it be and why? It's a
You
heavy
first.
question. I don't know. You go
Um,
first.
My most favorite device. Oh, tongs and bulb syringe.
Interesting.
Why? Because they allow me to keep my hands out of the tank, and I just like to. I get meticulous about things. So, like I was saying earlier, pulling algae out and stuff like that.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I always if I'm working on the tanks, like a tongs and bulb syringe are like right there. Bulb syringe for cleaning off rocks, feeding the
Hmm.
fish. Sometimes sucking things out that I've pulled off with the tweezers. I'll be right there
That's
with the
fair.
bulb syringe and getting it out.
Huh. That's a good one.
Um, yeah, for tools are probably my favorite. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, I love equipment too, so filtration's
Yep.
equipment fascinates me. But yeah, clever sort of tools that I always have in the arsenal are
Hmm.
long curved forceps and a bulb syringe.
That's a good one. I don't know.
Your turn.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of unconventional things now because yours
Yeah.
is so out there.
Well, I mean, it's so hard to pick something like filtration and stuff because there's just
Hmm.
so many different combos of equipment that works well, and there's so many
Hmm.
nice pieces of equipment out there.
Recently, I put a filter roller on my tank, the Clarity. I really appreciate not having to deal with filter socks. I could
That
deal
is
with
nice.
this like every 3.5, 4 weeks. I just pop on a new roll, and I
Yeah.
don't have to change socks every like 5 days. So,
I'm excited, man. We're running. I just put the clear water scrubber on the Red Sea aquarium,
nice.
and I have
Hmm.
a Clarity on there, and I'm excited for Let's talk again in maybe 2 months,
Hmm.
because I'm only about a month in. But once we can observe this, 3 months of it, I'm pretty excited to what this is going to accomplish. Once that
Hmm.
clear water gets established and
Yep.
having that filter roller, I think we're going to be able to run a pretty steady low nutrient level without having to do much.
Nice.
Um,
That broke in surprisingly quick. My Clearwater scrubber, like that,
yeah.
is
Oh yeah.
pretty fast. I was surprised how quick it broke in and started
Yeah.
working.
God, it was really recent we put it on.
Hmm.
Where are we at? We're at Wednesday, so I think it was last Friday, last Thursday. No, last Tuesday. Yeah, so
Hmm.
it's been a week.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
and yeah, I'm already seeing growth spots on it.
Excellent. Land Shark, how about Elktronic and upcoming Dostronic? I really appreciate the Elktronic too.
Do you? I'll
Not
be honest,
testing all
man.
the time is nice.
Yeah, I've never used one. I haven't used any of them yet. I have them and I've
Hmm.
played with them, but never used put one in application on a tank.
Okay, so
Kind of scared, but
right now,
talk more on
like
it.
my buddy has one too, and he's using his to dose. I'm just using mine to test. So I gotta
Okay.
go over there one of these days and follow up with him, see how it's going. But his tank looks awesome, so I'm sure it's doing well. But I think I feel like I have the dream setup right now because I have the Kimura pump feeding the Vertex calcium reactor, and then the Elkatronic test every 12 hours. So I can literally just look at the trends. If my elk is like high or low, I can walk over and be like, beep, I'm good again.
And just adjust the pump, the
Yeah.
digital output on the pump.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I
No,
just,
that's nice.
I'm like, oh, one more mil of elk done. I'm
Um,
good for another couple
you
months.
find yourself having to tune the CO2 at all, or do you just run it open and rely on the regulator?
Nope. I prefer to let the regulator always be on and just work as a backup, so there's less wear and tear on it. And I just
Okay.
tweak that little needle valve until my pH more or less stays dead stable. So,
Okay, so you're just using the needle, relying more on the needle valve and a consistent
yep,
bubble count,
exactly.
as opposed to
Yeah. So,
injecting a lot at once and then just shutting it off all
yeah,
the time.
yeah, exactly. So, like, I think I had it at like 6.8 something or whatever, and just keep tweaking it until it
Hmm.
stays dead stable. If it's
Yeah,
turning off and on, then I'll adjust my needle valve until it just stays on. Because I feel like there's less wear and tear on the solenoid. There's less wear and tear on like the Neptune outlet, all that
yeah,
stuff, right? So it's gonna give it just more stability, less wear.
sure.
I don't know.
Are you able to get down to the pH low enough, or do you find that it takes a few days to get that low when you're having to adjust it so slow?
Uh, no, it's usually like you make a tweak, and a few hours later you'll see the pH change in the graph, and
Okay,
then
so you'll be able to see it
yeah, I mean over a couple of
fairly
days I
quickly.
just tweak it, and I did that once, and it's pretty much been solid now. So I mean, there,
Awesome.
there will be a point where, if you can only let the flow so much and then you won't be getting enough out of it, and you'll have to add more CH. But for the most part, you can get one and then just tweak the other,
No, you're
right?
right. Yeah. Yep.
Yep. So you're saying the Dostronic should allow us not to have to test ever. Exciting times. Like, you still want to test once in a while. Like, I still try and test once a month just for like a spot check.
Yeah.
But if you're dosing everything equally, in theory, you're going to be pretty good, right? The odd spot check, still not a bad idea.
Yeah,
Um,
I always double check everything. Like I said,
mhm.
when there's an issue, I'm definitely pulling multiple test kits. And that's what kind of scares me about the electronic dosers is it's going to take me a while to trust them. That's
Yeah.
just the nature of the beast. It's what it is. It's going to take me a minute to
Hmm.
trust it, but I'll probably play with one this year and get a video out about the experience with it. I'm
Yep.
sure I will.
Nice. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah. No, I certainly will.
Yeah.
I'll probably hook it up to the GHL controller.
Nice.
And then, of course, we have the Neptune Trident. I mean, when that thing comes, of course, I'm going to
Hmm.
be playing with that. So, and I think we're pretty close to that.
Yep. Yeah, it's out there in some of the beta testers, so it's coming.
Oh yeah, no, I know a lot of beta test shop, but I
Hmm.
mean, once it's
To the
once it's
masses.
out into the world, I'll certainly share my thoughts with you guys.
Yep. Perfect. All right. I think we tell Robert to look into GHLKH Director to go
Yeah,
with the new Proflux. I haven't looked at the GHL one for some reason. I need to
yeah. No,
dig into that more.
I have the Cage Director, and that'll be the one
Hmm.
that I'll use first. I put the GHL Proflux 4
Hmm.
on the tank, and so I'll definitely do that one. That'll be a video you guys see out,
Hmm.
be done before the first part of the year. But it's some of the other standalone units that I haven't.
Hmm.
There's still the robot that we got, the Reef Kinetics. The Trident's going to be cool. So I think we're going to see more and more cool options
I
oh,
think since you potentially may have access to many, just have them all on one tank and just like compare them over time. That'd be cool to do.
that'd be cool. That would definitely be
Yep.
cool. But
Just
yeah,
be, just be like, all right, company, we need this test.
I'm gonna do it. I'm
it, it,
gonna
it
do
would
it.
be awesome. I think it'd be cool Marine Depot
Yeah.
video for like over a few months, just
No,
see
it
how they
would
all
be. I
compare
mean,
out.
there's man, there's so many things I've wanted to put to the test, so to
Hmm.
speak. And being in my position, as a retailer, yeah, we carry multiple skimmer brands, we carry multiple
Yeah.
pump brands, so so it's fair. But
It
when
still
you do those kind of
takes
things,
money
it's
for
like,
all those products, and it's
well,
an
that,
investment.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot into the production, but
Hmm.
also too, like, there's it's hard to make concrete, honest. I mean, it's just observations. There's just a lot of
Hmm.
variables into some of these things.
Hmm.
Uh, it's just sometimes hard to set up a real accurate test or
Yeah.
experiment, I guess.
No, that's fair.
When there's multiple variables, it's just tough.
Hmm.
You always got to have a solid control,
Yep.
or your experiment is not really worth anything.
No, that's true. Tom was asking, do you think a large water change on a nano will cause a mini cycle? Um, you're
Good.
maybe okay. Here's the thing: if your salt is the same parameters as your tank, it shouldn't affect much. If it's the same, roughly close enough in pH, same temperature, same elk, all that jazz, it shouldn't. You should be able to do as much water change you want. It shouldn't do a big thing.
Right.
It might a little bit. Depends if you take too long because you do have bacteria on your rock, everything, and letting it dry out or anything is obviously a bad thing. But I mean, if you did it really quickly or you had something that sucked out and replaced at the same time, I don't think there'd be a big issue. But the potential there could be something. But
It's rare because all the bacteria is on the surfaces.
yeah.
So the
So
bacteria stays on the rock and the sand and everything. And
mhm.
so, I mean, when you say a mini cycle, like it's not going to take, you know, a full week to kind of go through everything.
Hmm.
You might get a little bloom, but
Little
all
diatoms, that's probably the worst
yeah,
you'll see.
exactly. Your bacteria is all on your rock and in your sand. So pulling
Hmm.
even like Devin, like you said, you pull 100% of the water out and put 100% new water in.
Hmm.
Probably gonna stress some stuff out,
Yep.
but your bacteria foundation is gonna be
Hmm.
it'll probably stay the same. You won't see like a mini cycle where you're actually test for ammonia.
Hmm. Yeah.
You've got nitrifying bacteria that's going to survive through that.
Exactly. So I personally wouldn't worry about it. I would just make sure your salt is closely matched to whatever you keep your tank at. Biggest
Yeah.
advice
Oh
on that.
yeah, parameter wise, and that's just to not stress out the animals that are in there.
Yeah. Corals look fine, but I get diatoms quick. That could generally, if there's a big diatom issue, that could be there's silicates in your water. So you might want to potentially do a test of your RO or your tap, whatever you're using for your water, and just make sure it's not high in silicates.
Yeah, DIs silica's hard to remove,
Hmm.
and so silica is one thing that can get through a DI, especially when your DI is say half used or something.
Hmm.
It's not as strong to
I
pull
have
out.
they do make cartridges that will target it. I know because I have a Spectropure unit and they have
Silica Buster.
yeah, Silica Buster is one of their cartridges.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I have any, but I
Well, I
have
mean,
that cartridge,
it's
so
what it
it's
is.
taken
It's a
care.
particular resin
Yeah.
that's charged or targets the silica, and
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean that's the reason why they have that cartridge is because
Hmm.
a typical DI resin it has a hard time pulling out all of the silica.
Hmm.
And then diatoms, they're prehistoric animals that live through anything, so
Yep.
or organisms. So, yeah.
Now, if only the diatoms were the illumin bioluminescent ones that just glowed in your tank, then we would all want them.
That would be cool.
I know, right?
We should do that. We should
I know.
figure out how to do that. Where we could like write our names in the water.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be.
One
It
day.
happens out here every year. It's
Does
neat.
it? Oh.
I fish so much in the ocean, and so like, yeah, man.
Is it actually like that bright and like crazy when you see it? Like you
It's
see it in
blue.
movies.
Here
Is
it's
it?
blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here it's blue and it's almost metallic. So and it takes movement like friction,
Hmm.
and so it's really cool when you've got a full moon, and you've got the and you can watch the waves crash because they look
cool.
yeah, they kind of glow. And then also like just putting your hand in the water when you're on a boat or you're moving on the water,
Hmm.
it kind of creates this trail of bioluminescence.
That's cool.
Really neat to see. Yeah.
Ah.
But it takes friction in this instance.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen on its own. It's just obviously
You have to disturb it
throwing in
enough.
water. Yeah, exactly.
That'd be
The one
cool.
thing I'd really like to see someday is the northern lights. It reminds me of bioluminescence, but
Yep.
yeah, that's one thing.
Sky bioluminescence.
Do you get to see it where you're at or no?
Once I've kind of seen it, but it wasn't like this like big glowing miraculous thing like you see in photos.
Yeah, no,
So-
that's what I want to see someday.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
you gotta be up north quite a bit to get the prime stuff. But
Oh,
one day.
I see it. Got it.
All right, we'll
Let's go
arrange
together.
these two things. Okay. All right, we gotta go to the ocean and up north.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do an Alaska cruise. Supposedly they see them, so we'll see.
All right, are we done?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we got everything. We're completely sidebars. Robert,
All right, cool.
thank you so much. I appreciate having you
Yes.
on as always.
Maybe we should talk together more in private so we don't have to bore these people with our personal side conversations.
Hey, there's still like 96 people that are still here, so this can't be that bad.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you everybody for coming in. I appreciate you guys joining us here. Devin, you have yourself a wonderful week, buddy, and thanks for inviting me on the call.
Okay, thanks so much as well. Thanks everybody that joined. Appreciate you guys.
Bye now.
Bye.